Hi, my loves. This is Isabella Sanfilippo coming at you from WCHS, and you're listening to the I Love You podcast, and we're about to go on a deep dive. So, I recorded this episode with Becky and Dia last Friday, but as I did some reflecting on the episode, I realized that there was a lot left unsaid, and I just wanted to add that. So, this episode is going to be formatted a little differently. I'm going to use clips from the original episode, but also just add my 2 cents after some reflection. And I got inspiration from a podcast called Science Versus, which is really cool. It's just all about the science behind things and stopping the spread of misinformation on the internet, which I thought is really cool and something that is really powerful. So they do this kind of style where there's a lot of commentary and then there's a clip of an interview they did, and I wanted to try that out, so here we go. First, I wanted to define what is a toxic friendship.
First, when friends don't support each other, or just when sometimes you just don't click with someone, when you're around them and your mood goes down, if that makes sense. Sometimes I feel with my friends, if I'm excited to go tell them something, when I tell them, my mood goes up, but sometimes with certain people it's you don't want to tell them, you don't want to talk to them because whatever they say is going to bring your mood down.
Yeah, I think it's also someone that you don't feel comfortable in sharing what you want to share with.
That's probably
if you're doubting if you should share something with someone, I don't know, I just think trust is a big thing. Definitely. And just being able to say anything that you want to talk about.
Someone who doesn't make you feel good.
After that, I pulled up an article I had read, and it was just all about signs of a toxic friendship. And Becky and Dia and I played a little game called Guess Some Signs of a Toxic Friendship.
Okay, should I take a little gamble?
Yes, take a gamble.
Wait, I forgot my thought process.
We're in Vegas now.
Let me take a gamble. Okay, if there's only effort from one side, so it's a one-sided friendship.
Yes, that is the second one.
Yes,
What?
I got it.
We were talking in health class about this, and the way the article phrased it was they always need something for you. So this applies in situations where one person always has to give, whereas the other person just takes. It creates an imbalance in the relationship, and it's very draining and unfair on the person who has to continually give and give. Becky also guessed right.
I was gonna guess they could even do it in a sarcastic way, but they point out your flaws.
The article phrased things in a weird way, but this one was classified as they dismiss your values, which includes peer pressure. So if a friend is trying to force you to do something dangerous that you don't want to do, that is definitely a toxic behavior. Yes, friends should push us, but they should push us to be better people and not push us to do things that are uncomfortable and put us in bad situations. And after this, we just did a brief overview on the signs of toxic friendships. The first was they can't respect your boundaries. This behavior relates to maybe asking to hang out all the time, and that article said something interesting. So a lot of the times, if you can't make it, the other person tries to make you feel guilty about it. For example, if you had a big event or long day at work and you just feel like staying home, the other person could pressure you into hanging out. Or if they had asked you to hang out and you said no because of the thing you had that day, they would switch the time so you'd be able to go after you expressed that you didn't want to. So this was one of the things that after doing the episode, I had thought about it more, and I came to the conclusion that boundaries have to be set in order for the other person to know to follow them. Oftentimes, you don't really know boundaries until they're set, so if someone is crossing a line, they might just not know what they're doing. So back to the example, if you had a really big day and you just want to be by yourself, expressing that and saying, I'm not really feeling up for that today, maybe a different day, could be something that sets that boundary. And it's completely understandable if you had a long day or week or month and you just want to decompress. Where it can get to be toxic is if the other person tries to pressure you into doing again something that you don't want to do after you express that's something that you don't want to do. Becky also had a really good point that the article didn't even mention.
Did they also say if someone never makes time to see you? Like, did they do a flip side of that too?
Yeah, because I feel like sometimes, like, if someone just, like, is, like, kind
Always
of always
saying no.
saying that they can't hang out, they can't do this, then it's, like without,
Like, you
an
try to
actual
respect
reason.
them, but they never, like, but then at a certain point you do question everything. Like, did they say anything
Like,
about
do they
that?
actually like me, or...
So, thinking on to this one, if someone is just constantly saying no, but not providing a reason, this could be them distancing themselves. And in this case, I'd advise reflecting back onto yourself. I mean, not overly or like overthinking, but just like maybe did I do something to make them uncomfortable, or why would they be pulling away? But I also think that if you're trying to distance yourself, you should always ask the other person for space so they wouldn't be left wondering with these questions and overthinking all of the time. Unfortunately, if you are dealing with a toxic person, they could just be like, no, you're not allowed to leave. But if the person you're dealing with is truly your friend, they will understand. But if you're in that situation where they're just like, no, don't listen to them, they don't own you, they don't control you, and that is someone who is trying to control you, and that's not healthy. So if they ask for space, also trust their judgment, give them the space. It's easy to say that maybe they're overreacting or kind of prioritize your want to see them, but you do just have to trust them and trust that they're doing what's best for them. And that doesn't always align with what you want, but I think that's something that's really important about a friendship, is that sometimes you do kind of have to make sacrifices for the greater good of that person. And I did also want to add that toxic behavior doesn't necessarily make someone a toxic person. And I know that's kind of a contradictory statement, but give me a second, I'll try to make it make sense. So, we've all experienced and exhibited toxic behavior because no one is perfect, and there can never be someone who is completely in the right and someone who is completely in the wrong. It's just not the way that life works. In order for someone to be a toxic person, I think they have to constantly exhibit this behavior, because like back to the first example, like with setting boundaries. If someone doesn't set boundaries, but the other person does cross that boundary, you're kind of stuck in this tough spot where you could be upset that this boundary was crossed, but at the same time, you didn't set it. So if a situation like this happens, how to deal with it is to set this boundary. And once that boundary is set, if the person keeps crossing it, that's when things start to turn from maybe it's a toxic behavior that happened once to now you talked about it and it's a toxic behavior that is constantly shown throughout the friendship, and it becomes unhealthy. And when someone does something to upset you, it's better to tell them up front so again that doesn't keep happening. And if they don't change the behavior that's making you upset, that's when you have to start distancing yourself and pull away. The second sign was the one that Dia had guessed. They always need something from you. The article had a lot of advice from a Dr. Ibar Jacobs, and they said that a toxic friend will always need something from you, and they will always need you to be at their beck and call, but they might not reciprocate. They'll ask you for favors or ask you to be there, and will guilt trip you when you're not readily available. The third sign is that they don't take accountability. We've talked about this trait so many times on the show, and at this point, we might make an episode on it, so stay tuned for that. The fourth sign was they weaponize their struggles, and this can look like many different things.
Sorry. I just heard a story about like that happening.
Okay.
So that just made me laugh. I don't remember everything. It was just like to feel better about themselves, or even if they're fishing for compliments. It's like, oh, my hair looks so bad today. Like, no, it doesn't, and you obviously just want a compliment. Stuff like that. So that just made me laugh.
Sometimes it's like too much. Like you're like if you're like talking to someone about like something that you're struggling with, and they're like, oh, but like I have it worse, and you're like, okay,
like,
but
no,
that's
you
like,
really don't.
and then it's like, okay, but that's like not what you're talking about. We were talking about me for once, and then I completely get what the article was saying.
It's like the one Ginny and Georgia episode where she was like, I have it worse, and then he was like, no, I have it worse. It was like Ginny and Hunter. That's his name, right?
Yeah. Oh my God. That was literally
that
like they were like oppressing each other.
Yeah, they were like
I was
battling
like,
who was more oppressed. It was the craziest episode in the world.
I know. I was like, what is that conversation? I was like, actually stop. Like what are you trying to argue? One of you is more oppressed than the other.
Oftentimes, we see characters displaying toxic traits in TV shows for entertainment. And if you take nothing else from this episode, just please don't act like any of the characters from Ginny and Georgia. The fifth sign was that they make you feel guilty for spending time with other people. This is that control aspect that is very notorious in toxic relationships. No one can tell you who you can or can't hang out with, or what you can or cannot do, especially when it comes from a place of anger or jealousy. The sixth one was the one that Becky had guessed. They point out your flaws, or the way the article phrased it was, they dismiss your values. And this can also look like a lot of different things. But like, especially if they do it in more of like a backhanded way. Like, so it's like you can't really be mad because they didn't like explicitly like say something, but at the same time it's like it hurt your feelings.
Yeah.
So
like when it's like they didn't like specifically be like, oh my God, like I hate your hair, but like they say it in a way that's like
has your hair always looked like that?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Okay then. But like they don't say
It's
anything
like-
good
or
about it.
it's
It's like, oh my gosh.
Or like, that's a cute outfit for you.
Yeah.
Be
Stuff
like,
like
oh,
that.
that's like a really like brave outfit of you. to wear.
Yeah, like you must.
Like,
I want your confidence.
Like, I want your confidence. I would love to be able to like
Pull that
it
off.
That's so brave of you. Like, like something like that. And then you're like, thank you.
The last one isn't one that's often thought of. It's they ignore your effort to be a good friend. This one gets a little bit complicated because people can show effort in different ways. Like in Becky's example, if that person can't hang out but they try to text as often or call to check up on you, and they're still trying to put in effort and be a good friend, but it might just not match what the other person is expecting. And when this happens, it just showcases why communication is super important. Because if someone is expecting you to clear your schedule and make time for them, but they don't communicate that with you, how is the other person supposed to know? So this is kind of the gray area that communication can fix. And I feel like this also plays into just give your friends the benefit of the doubt. I think that it's so important to not jump to conclusions, and it's really important in order to keep long-lasting relationships. Because if they're trying their best, but their effort might not look like exactly how you want it, maybe giving them that benefit of the doubt could be what saves a relationship. And it's also really important to self-reflect onto yourself when you're dealing with toxic situations, because again, these situations aren't black and white.
I kind of like always automatically think that I did something wrong, and then I have to like overthink it, and then I'm like, wait, hold up. Maybe I'm not the problem, but like I feel like it's definitely like important to like understand the other perspective.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. And then we went into talking about how to deal with toxic friends. And Becky and Dia hit the hammer straight on the nail with this one.
I feel like a good way to end a toxic friendship is if you just slowly like distance yourself from the person instead of like getting mad and like blowing up at them, because that's not really gonna solve anything.
I agree. And also, before you do that, I would definitely try to talk out your feelings.
I agree.
Take accountability if you did anything wrong, like, and just try to do your best to make them see what you're feeling, because you can't, like, get super mad at the person if they don't even know how you feel, because they're not gonna realize they're doing anything wrong. For some cases they might, and then just distance yourself.
Yeah.
But definitely try to talk it out first, I would say.
That is exactly what was advised. There were 4 steps in the article on how to deal with ending toxic relationships. So number 1 was confront them, and that doesn't have to be in an aggressive way. I'd advise it not to be an aggressive way. It just means, like how Becky said, show them how you're feeling. Having an honest and heartfelt conversation with someone can really save the relationship, especially because it's very possible that your friends don't realize that they're being toxic. Number 2, if that doesn't work and the toxic behavior still continues, the second step is to distance yourself. So I feel like the first step can really show you if maybe they exhibited this toxic behavior once, you talk, you get past it, or they keep exhibiting this toxic behavior, and that's when the friendship itself can get toxic. So that is when you do have to start distancing yourself. Number 3 is accept how you feel. And it's hard to distance yourself from someone you love, but you have to accept how you feel and know that it's for the best. When you get into toxic relationships, a lot of the time, all you know is that person, because they've just been such a huge part of your life. And it's going to be very hard to try to break away from that. But by accepting how you feel, and number 4, taking your time, it can be very healing, and you can learn a lot about yourself in the process. So like I said, number 4 is take your time. I think this also plays into don't forgive someone because you feel like you have to or to make them happy.
Yeah, even if someone like apologized well and everything, sometimes you just need time to like process everything.
Thank you guys for listening, and thank you to my amazing friends and radio technicians, Becky and Dia. I'm your host, Isabella Sanfilippo. Thank you for listening to the I Love You podcast. Until the next deep dive, I love you.